Story 1. The Star Who Wanted to Swim. Once upon a time, in the highest corner of the night sky, lived a tiny star named Twinkle. While all the other stars were happy, shining bright, Twinkle was curious about the big blue ocean he saw far below on Earth. "I wonder if the water feels as cool as it looks," Twinkle whispered to the moon. One night, with a soft whoosh, Twinkle decided to make a wish and slide down a long, silver moonbeam. He landed right in the middle of a calm forest pond with a gentle splash. But Twinkle was surprised. He didn't sink. He floated right on top of the water. Just then, a friendly frog named Barnaby hopped onto a lily pad nearby. "Ribbit, are you a glowing flower?" Barnaby asked, tilting his head. "No," Twinkle laughed, his light flickering happily. "I am a star. I came here to see what swimming feels like." Twinkle and Barnaby spent the whole night playing. Barnaby showed Twinkle how to make ripples in the water, and Twinkle told Barnaby stories about the galaxies far away. Twinkle realized that while he loved the water, he missed his friends in the sky. As the sun began to rise, the moon reached down a silver hand to pull Twinkle back home. "Goodbye, Barnaby," Twinkle called out. "Now, whenever you see a star reflecting in a pond, it's Twinkle saying hello to his best friend, the frog." Story 2. The Cloud That Rained Colors. Once upon a time, high above a very gray and dusty city, lived a fluffy little cloud named Puff. While all the other clouds were proud of their heavy gray rain or cold white snow, Puff was different. Whenever Puff felt happy, he didn't rain water, he rained colors. One Tuesday morning, the city looked extra gloomy. The people walked with their heads down, and the park was filled with dry, brown grass. Puff looked down and felt a burst of joy, because he saw a little girl sharing her sandwich with a bird. "I want to help," Puff chirped. He took a deep breath, squeezed his fluffy middle, and instead of a storm, a shower of bright pink and sunny yellow droplets fell from the sky. Splatter, pop, fizz. The droplets didn't get anyone wet. Instead, they turned the gray benches pink and the dusty sidewalk yellow. The children ran out of their houses, looking up in wonder. Puff giggled, and, as he did, electric blue and lime green rain began to fall. By the afternoon, the gray city had turned into a giant, beautiful rainbow. The people weren't sad anymore. They were dancing and painting along with Puff. Puff realized that he didn't need to be a regular rain cloud to be useful. He was a painting cloud, and his job was to make the world smile, one color at a time. Story 3. Bernie the Bubble Dragon. Once upon a time, in a cozy cave deep inside the Smoky Mountains, lived a small green dragon named Bernie. Now, all of Bernie's brothers and sisters were very good at breathing hot, orange fire. They used their fire to roast giant marshmallows for breakfast. But when Bernie opened his mouth to roar, something very strange happened. Pop, pop, pop. Instead of fire, hundreds of shimmering rainbow bubbles floated out of his nose. "Oh no," Bernie sighed, watching a bubble land on his toe. "I am not a real dragon. I'm just a bubble maker." One afternoon, the village at the bottom of the mountain was having a very sad day. It was too hot, the sun was too bright, and the children had no toys to play with. They sat on the grass, feeling very grumpy. Bernie looked down from his cave and felt sorry for them. He took a deep breath, flew down to the village square, and let out the biggest roar he could manage. Suddenly, the sky was filled with thousands of giant, magical bubbles. Some were as big as beach balls, and others were as tiny as pearls. The children's eyes went wide. They started jumping, laughing, and chasing the bubbles through the air. "Look!" a little boy cried. "It's a bubble dragon." The bubbles cooled the air and filled the village with magic. Bernie realized that while fire is good for marshmallows, bubbles are perfect for making people happy. From that day on, Bernie was the most popular dragon in the mountains. Story 4. Pippin's Magic Paintbrush. Once upon a time, in a tiny house hidden behind a giant oak tree, lived a small mouse named Pippin. While other mice spent their days searching for cheese and breadcrumbs, Pippin spent his time collecting colorful flower petals and shiny pebbles. One sunny morning, Pippin found something sparkling in the tall grass. It was a tiny, golden paintbrush. "I wonder what this does," Pippin whispered. He dipped the brush into a dewdrop and painted a small, bright red apple on a flat stone. Suddenly, poof, the painted apple became real. It was the juiciest, sweetest apple Pippin had ever seen. Pippin realized he had a magic paintbrush. But instead of painting mountains of cheese for himself, Pippin went for a walk to see who needed help. He saw a group of ants struggling to cross a puddle. Pippin quickly painted a sturdy wooden bridge. Poof! The ants marched across safely, waving their tiny antennae in thanks. Later, he found a ladybug who had lost her spots in the rain. With a gentle touch of his brush, Pippin painted beautiful, shiny black spots back onto her wings. By the end of the day, the forest was filled with Pippin's magic. Colorful umbrellas for the snails, warm blankets for the cold crickets, and bright lanterns for the owls. Pippin went to bed that night with a very happy heart. He learned that the best kind of magic is the one you use to make your friends' lives a little brighter. Story 5. Riley and the Forest Drum. Once upon a time, in the middle of the Whispering Woods, lived a small rabbit named Riley. Riley had the longest, floppiest ears in the whole forest, but he was very quiet. Every morning, the birds woke up the sun with beautiful, high-pitched songs. The frogs in the pond sang deep, booming choruses. Even the wind whistled through the trees. Riley wanted to join the music, but whenever he opened his mouth, only a tiny twitch of his nose came out. "I don't have a song," Riley said sadly, drooping his long ears. One afternoon, while Riley was sitting on an old, hollow log, he started to tap his foot impatiently. Thump thump, the log made a wonderful, deep sound. Riley's ears perked up. He tapped again, harder this time. Boom thumped, tap. A squirrel sitting nearby started shaking a dry seed pod. Shakish ma shake shatter, a woodpecker on a branch added a rhythmic tap dash, tap dash, tap dash, tap. Suddenly, Riley realized he wasn't just a quiet rabbit, he was a drummer. He used his strong back legs to create a beat that made the whole forest want to dance. The birds began to sing along to Riley's rhythm, and the forest filled with the most joyful music ever heard. Riley learned that you don't need a singing voice to make music. Sometimes, all you need is a good beat and a hollow log to find your own special sound. Story 6. Rusty and the Metal Flower. Once upon a time, in a city made entirely of shiny silver metal and cold iron gears, lived a small robot named Rusty. Everything in Rusty's world was hard, grey, and very, very noisy. Rusty's job was to tighten bolts on big machines. But Rusty was a bit different from the other robots. While they loved the smell of oil and the sound of clanking metal, Rusty loved to look at the cracks in the sidewalk. One morning, Rusty saw something he had never seen before. A tiny, bright green leaf was poking its head out of a crack in the grey pavement. "What are you?" Rusty buzzed, his mechanical eyes blinking. It was a tiny wildflower. It looked thirsty and tired. Rusty didn't have a watering can, but he used his little oil cup to fetch some fresh rainwater. He stood over the flower all day, using his metal body to protect it from the hot sun and the heavy wind. Slowly, the flower grew. It turned bright red with soft, velvet petals. The other robots stopped their clanking and clinking to look at it. They had never seen anything so soft or colorful. One by one, the other robots began to help. One robot built a tiny fence to keep the flower safe, and another brought rich soil from the edge of the city. Soon, the tiny flower turned into a beautiful garden in the middle of the Silver City. Rusty realized that even in a world of metal and gears, there is always a place for something soft and beautiful to grow. The city wasn't just grey anymore. It was now the home of the most famous garden in the world. Story 7. Oliver and the Golden Dream. Once upon a time, in the hollow of a very tall oak tree, lived a little owl named Oliver. Now, Oliver was a bit unusual for an owl. While all his friends loved the dark, mysterious night, Oliver was a little bit afraid of the shadows. "The night is too big and too quiet," Oliver would whisper, tucking his head under his wing. One night, as Oliver sat on his branch, he noticed something sparkling in the air. It wasn't a firefly, and it wasn't a star. It was a shimmering, golden bubble floating gently through the trees. "Wait for me," Oliver cried, flapping his soft wings. He followed the bubble to the edge of the forest, where a small cottage stood. The golden bubble was stuck in the thorny branches of a rosebush. Oliver realized it was a good dream trying to reach a sleeping child inside the house. Carefully, using his beak, Oliver untangled the golden bubble. As soon as it was free, the dream began to glow even brighter. It floated through the open window and settled softly on a little boy's pillow. Suddenly, Oliver looked around. The shadows didn't look scary anymore. They looked like soft velvet. The moon wasn't cold. It was like a nightlight for the whole world. Oliver realized that the night wasn't just dark, it was the time when magic and dreams traveled. From that night on, Oliver became the guardian of dreams. He spent every night making sure every golden bubble found its way to a sleeping friend. He wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because he knew he was the light that watched over the world's sleep. Story 8. Sammy's Button Tree. Once upon a time, in the heart of the great green forest, lived a squirrel named Sammy. Now, as you know, most squirrels spend their days searching for acorns and walnuts. But not Sammy. Sammy was a collector of lost buttons. He found them on the forest paths where hikers walked. He had shiny red buttons, wooden brown buttons, and even tiny silver buttons that sparkled like diamonds. He kept them all in the hollow of a beautiful silver birch tree. "Sammy, you can't eat buttons," his friend Nutty the squirrel would laugh. "You will be very hungry when the winter snow falls." Sammy would just smile and polish a bright blue button with his tail. "Nuts are good for the tummy," he would say, "but buttons are good for the eyes." One morning, the first snow of winter fell. The forest became very white, very quiet, and a little bit lonely. All the animals stayed inside their warm nests. They felt a bit sad because the colorful flowers were gone, and the world looked very plain. Sammy had an idea. He took his collection and began to press the colorful buttons into the bark of his silver birch tree. When the sun finally came out, something magical happened. The sunlight hit the buttons, and hundreds of tiny, colorful rainbows danced across the white snow. Red, blue, green, and gold lights twinkled everywhere. The birds flew down to see, and the rabbits hopped out of their burrows. The button tree was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. It looked like a forest full of stars. Nutty the squirrel brought Sammy a handful of acorns as a gift. "Thank you, Sammy," he said. "You were right. We need nuts to stay full, but we need your rainbows to stay happy." Story 9. Gary the Rainbow Giraffe. Once upon a time, in the middle of the golden sunny savannah, lived a young giraffe named Gary. Now, as you know, most giraffes have beautiful brown spots that help them hide in the tall grass. But Gary was different. Gary's spots were like magic mood rings. They changed color depending on how he felt. When Gary was happy, his spots turned a bright, sunny yellow. When he was sleepy, they turned a soft, velvety purple. But when Gary felt shy, which was quite often, his spots turned a very pale, invisible white. "I wish I had normal brown spots," Gary sighed, looking at his reflection in the watering hole. "I don't want to stand out like a box of crayons." One afternoon, the great Savannah talent show was about to begin. All the animals were excited, but suddenly the sky turned dark with heavy clouds. A thick, grey fog rolled in, and the animals couldn't see the stage or each other. "We can't have the show," cried the zebra. "It's too dark and gloomy." Gary saw how sad his friends were. He thought about how much he loved his friends, and a warm feeling started in his heart. Suddenly, he felt a burst of pure, shimmering excitement. His spots began to glow. They turned neon orange, electric blue, and bright pink. Gary stood tall near the stage, and his spots lit up the whole area like a magnificent disco ball. "Look at Gary!" The monkeys cheered. "He's a living light bulb." Thanks to Jerry's glowing spots, the talent show was a huge success. The animals danced and sang under Jerry's colorful light. Gary realized that being different didn't mean he didn't fit, and it meant he was the only one who could bring a rainbow to a foggy day. Story 10. Finny and the Lost Echo. Once upon a time, in the deepest, bluest part of the ocean, lived a tiny fish named Finny. Finny was small, but he had a very big heart. He lived in a forest of swaying green seaweed and bright pink coral. One day, while exploring a hidden underwater cave, Finny heard a strange sound. "Hello, hello, hello!" It was a lost echo. It was a tiny, floating silver bubble that carried the sound of a voice. The echo looked very sad and dim, because it had no one to listen to it. "Don't worry," Finny said, swishing his tail. "I will help you find where you belong." Finny and the echo traveled through the ocean. They swam past a giant, sleepy whale and under a bridge made of old shipwrecks. Along the way, the echo started to glow brighter because Finny was talking to it and keeping it company. Finally, they reached the Whispering Reef, where the sea anemones loved to tell jokes. Finny noticed a mother dolphin calling out for her baby. "I'm here, I'm here," the mother dolphin sang. Finny released the lost echo. It zoomed through the water and joined the mother dolphin's voice, making her song loud and clear so her baby could find his way home. The mother dolphin leaped out of the water in joy. Finny smiled as the echo gave one last, happy thank you, before disappearing into the music of the reef. Finny learned that even the smallest fish can help find something that is lost, especially when it is a voice that needs to be heard. Story 11. The Clockmaker of Seasons. Once upon a time, at the very top of the snowy peaks, lived a tiny gnome named Tick-Tock. Tick-Tock wasn't an ordinary gnome. He was the keeper of the great seasonal clock. The clock had 4 giant keys, a green one for spring, a yellow one for summer, a brown one for autumn, and a white one for winter. Every few months, Tick-Tock would turn a key, and the world below would change colors. One day, Tick-Tock felt a bit bored. "Why must we wait so long for the flowers?" he wondered. "I want to see everything at once." He grabbed all 4 keys and turned them at the same time. Crank, snap, whir. Suddenly, the world below went crazy. Snow started falling on blooming sunflowers. Red autumn leaves stuck to frozen ice cubes. The birds didn't know whether to fly south or build nests. The poor bees were very confused, trying to find honey in a snowstorm. "Oh no!" Tick-Tock cried, looking down at the messy forest. "Everything is happening too fast." He realized that nature needs to rest, just like people do. Spring needs to wake up slowly, and winter needs to sleep peacefully. Tick-Tock carefully untangled the gears and set the clock back to the spring key. Slowly, the snow melted, and the first snowdrops began to peek through the soil. The world felt calm again. Tick-Tock learned that beauty cannot be rushed. From that day on, he sat patiently on his mountain, enjoying every single second of the season he was in, knowing that the best things in life are always worth the wait. Story 12. The moon's missing piece. Once upon a time, high up in the velvet night, the moon was feeling very proud. He was a perfect, glowing circle, shining like a silver coin. He loved how the rivers looked like flowing milk under his light. But as the days went by, the moon started to feel a little bit smaller. Every night, a tiny sliver of him seemed to vanish. "Oh dear," the moon cried to a passing comet, "I am disappearing. Someone is stealing my silver." He asked the north wind, but the wind just blew past. He asked the great owl, but the owl was too busy hunting. Finally, he saw a tiny space mouse floating by on a stardust cloud. "Excuse me," the moon whispered. "Do you know where my missing pieces are going? Am I fading away forever?" The space mouse giggled and nibbled on a piece of star cheese. "Oh, silly moon. You aren't losing anything. You are just playing hide-and-seek with the sun. You are leaning back to take a little nap in the shadows." The mouse explained that the moon needed to get smaller so the stars could have a chance to shine extra bright. If the moon was always full and big, the tiny stars would be too shy to show their light. The moon felt much better. He watched as he turned into a thin, silver crescent, like a glowing smile in the sky. He realized that it was okay not to be full all the time. Sometimes, you have to step back and let others shine, knowing that your time to glow big will always come back around. Story 13. The toy hospital under the bed. Once upon a time, in a bedroom filled with blocks, books, and stuffed animals, lived a small teddy bear named Barnaby. Now, Barnaby wasn't a brand new bear. He had a missing button eye and a very wobbly ear. Every night, when the moon reached the middle of the window and the children were fast asleep, Barnaby didn't sleep. He climbed down from the shelf and opened the magic toy hospital under the bed. "Next patient, please," Barnaby would whisper. First came a wooden dinosaur with a broken tail. Barnaby used some shiny blue ribbon to tie it back together. Then came a toy airplane that had lost its propeller. Barnaby used a popsicle stick and some silver glitter to make it even better than before. One night, a very sad, tiny tin soldier arrived. "I am too old," the soldier sighed. "My paint is peeling, and I don't look like a hero anymore." Barnaby smiled and gave the soldier a warm hug. Then, he used a drop of sunshine yellow paint and a bit of bravery dust. "A hero isn't about how shiny your paint is," Barnaby said. "A hero is about how much you are loved." By the time the sun began to peek through the curtains, all the toys were fixed and back in their places. The children would wake up and wonder why their dinosaur had a pretty blue ribbon or why their tin soldier looked so proud. Barnaby would just sit on the shelf, his one button eye twinkling. He knew the secret, that toys don't need to be perfect to be magical. They just need a little bit of care and a lot of heart. Story 14. The snail who wanted to fly. Once upon a time, in a garden filled with tall sunflowers and buzzing bees, lived a tiny snail named Shelley. Shelley was very slow, but she had a very big dream. Every afternoon, she watched the colorful butterflies glide through the air. "Oh, how wonderful it must be to see the world from above," Shelley sighed, leaving a silver trail on a leaf. The ladybugs laughed. "Shelley, you have a heavy house on your back. Snails are meant to crawl, not to fly." But Shelley didn't give up. She climbed to the very top of a tall dandelion. She stretched her neck as far as she could, hoping a gust of wind would lift her up. Instead, she just felt the dandelion wobble. Just then, a friendly dandelion seed with white, fluffy hair floated by. "Do you want to see the sky, Shelley?" the seed asked. "More than anything," Shelley replied. The seed whispered to its brothers and sisters, Suddenly, hundreds of tiny, fluffy dandelion parachutes gathered around Shelley's shell. They caught a gentle summer breeze, and whoosh! Shelley felt her tiny feet leave the green leaf. She was flying. She soared over the garden fence, over the sleeping cat, and even higher than the sunflowers. The world looked like a beautiful patchwork quilt of green and gold. When she finally landed softly on a rose petal, she was beaming with joy. She realized that she didn't need wings of her own to fly. She just needed a little help from her friends and the courage to reach for the stars. Story 15. The Library of Whispering Leaves. Once upon a time, at the very edge of the world where the sky touches the grass, there was a magical forest known as the Library of Whispering Leaves. In this forest, the trees didn't grow fruit. They grew stories. The librarian was a gentle giant panda named Pax. Pax had a pair of golden spectacles and a long silken scarf made of starlight. Every evening, he would walk through the trees and listen to the leaves rustling. One leaf would whisper a story about a star who went swimming. Another would hum the tale of a robot who loved flowers. One day, a little bird flew to Pax and asked, "Where do all these stories come from? And where do they go when the wind blows the leaves away?" Pax smiled and caught a falling orange leaf. "Stories come from the hearts of those who dream," he explained. "And when a leaf falls, the wind carries the story to the ears of children all around the world. As long as someone is listening, the story never truly ends." That night, Pax decided to send out a very special batch of stories. He gathered the tales of the bubble dragon, the painting cloud, and the brave little snail. He blew a gentle breath, and thousands of colorful leaves swirled into the air, flying across oceans and mountains. So, the next time you hear the wind rustling through the trees, listen very closely. It might just be Pax the panda, sending a brand new story just for you. And as the sun sets on the Library of Whispering Leaves, remember, every day is a new page, and you are the hero of your own wonderful story.